acute recall has limited capacity, namely the number of pairs I1, I2 that can be stored, and limited reliability, namely the correctness of the remembered I2. We may sometimes remember it wrongly. In the next class of agents, there is cognition and learning. Now there is a new sense, namely the sense of the mind, that can contain symbols that may be given a meaning. And the meaning can be objects and actions, but also can be other symbols or other combinations of symbols. Why is the mind a sense? Well, if I mention the word Taj Mahal, that's a symbol, a representation of sound, then in your mind comes perhaps the picture of this beautiful building in India. So the mind indeed is an input and we can act accordingly. So how now can we obtain procedural learning? We can use repeated cued recall. A sequence of symbols then is remembered, like G1, G2, G3. And those symbols stand for put the stick shift of your car into gear 1, gear 2, gear 3, respectively. After some practice, one can drive a car, changing gears at the right speed. Also, cognitive learning is possible by dramatically enhancing the quality of associative memory, explained in next slide. This is a theorem by the Dutch mathematician Debashis. He says, suppose an agent has many units for associative memory, and all those units have limited capacity M and have reliability of, let's say, 50%. But we have a lot of them. Let's suppose that we have 10 to the power 10 billion of them. Then it's possible to construct a compound system for associative memory with capacity the square root n times m and reliability 1 minus e to the power minus 20, which is almost reliability of 100%. I will give you the proof sketch of this beautiful theorem. The 10 to the 10 small units of associative memory are made to be on or off at random, but in a special ratio. They are on for 1 moment, and then 10 to the power 4 moments they are off. So in real time, they are on for half a second, and then they are off for 4 hours. And this is energy efficient. Then by simple probability, because of the fact that we have 10 billion of those elements, at every moment, 10 to the power 6 units are on. During learning phase, these store the pair I1, I2, those 10 to the power 6. At recall time, which is later, there are also 10 to the power 6 on, but that's a different set. But now, of these million that were on during learning phase, and of those million that are on at recall phase, the intersection is 100 in the average. So they remember what I2 was, but not all correctly. And now they will give a majority vote among the 100 to the right association. And this is a way to remember large pieces of text with a high reliability. Now I come to mindfulness. In Pali, this is sati, and in Sanskrit, this is smrti, a quite important aspect of the human mind. And for the last 30 years, the practice of mindfulness has been very popular and successful in the West. But in India, it has been popular already for several millennia. And I like to describe now what mindfulness is. Let's first look to so-called pre-consciousness in the agents up till A4. At every moment, they observe and they act and they have state. And this is denoted by a little rectangle. This is time, this line under here that proceeds discretely. You remember time was discrete. And here you see a snapshot of the world here and now. The next moment you see again a snapshot. It's a little bit better not to consider this as actual snapshots, but as elaborations and interpolations of what happened during this interval. You're not aware of that, but the next moment that your consciousness acts, you see an interpolation of what has happened. And in this way, you can explain the so-called five phenomenon of the Gestalt therapist, the Gestalt psychologist, or the Sperling experiment. You can find this in the references 29 and 23. In this way, you have your lifeline of configurations. And in your lifeline, you have the stream of what you see and hear, the stream of your state of mind, and the stream of your actions. But now, what is mindfulness? In mindfulness, you observe the previous mind state, which is still visible. And so here, not only you look in the world, but you look more closely to what was your previous state. And with attention now, you can choose not to engage in your previous state, and you become flexible. This will be explained in next slide. For example, at some moment, we see certain input I, and we have become angry because of the I. So here is our mind state of angriness. And when we are angry, we have unwholesome behavior. And that's the A prime. Now, mindfulness can transform this into the following. Rather than being angry, you see the angriness. So you use naming and you say, oh, there is angriness in me. But you say this, you state this in an equanimous way. And because of the equanimity, your actions can become wholesome. Better even than naming is noting. You do not need to use language to describe your angriness. You just observe, yes. And you feel your blood maybe boiling, etc., etc. But by observing this and by not allowing it in the mind state, you can change your behavior. So the art of mindfulness is to observe in an equanimous way our angriness. And in the same way, we can observe in an equanimous way our sadness or other emotions. And in this way, we can beyond our suffering. Because for the robots, with awareness, there is suffering. I already indicated that there were errors when we act, and the errors form one cause of suffering. And I would like to distinguish between worldly suffering and existential suffering. Worldly suffering occurs when we do not succeed with our intentions, for example, by inaccuracy of our actions. Remember, we are programmed by neural nets and they only approximate, or by the impossibility of our goals, or by counteracts of others. And this goes on, and this, oh, excuse me, and this is the world of samsara. Existential suffering is even worse. With mindful insight into impermanence, namely everything changes, and the triplets of our state come and come and come just by themselves in a selfless way, following the laws of nature. Well, if we experience this for the first time, then we lose our balance. So that's the second form of suffering. Now, both types of suffering have as presupposition that the self is a permanent entity that is in control of what happens. But that's not the case. Now, mindfulness was the cause of suffering, but it also gives us a possibility of liberation, moksha in your language. So let's go back to the suffering. You have those triplets, I as A, the next one, I as prime, A prime, etc. And a particular aspect of suffering is that you loop, you become caught in a strange attractor and you cannot get out of it. If you could get out of your suffering, then it would be no longer suffering. So let's make a close-up. In this strange attractor, we see it here closed up. We have always changing input and actions. But now, using the invention of yoga, samadhi, concentration, we can restrict our input and our output. And that's what happens during meditation. We restrict our many possible inputs to just one, the meditation object. That can be your breath, it can be a kasina, a circle in front of you, it can be many other things. But anyway, we fix our input. And in the same way, we do not act. We promise ourselves to sit still. So we obtain a projection of this strange attractor. The I and the A are no longer counted. And the only thing that changes is the state, S prime, S double prime, etc. And this is much simpler. If now we keep being mindful, aware, we obtain insight in the vicious circle with equanimity. And then when we surrender with determination, we can obtain a reset, a cessation, when the focus of our attention is just the empty set. We do not focus on anything. Well, the input and actions are boring, so we do not need to see them. And when we have the empty set as focus, we observe emptiness that makes it able to make a reset of our conscious state, and we escape the strange attractor of suffering. So this is the end of my talk. Maybe I go to slide 1, or better this slide, by describing more and more rich agents from Turing machine to robots that are already having a body. The Turing machine didn't have a body or didn't play a role. Then we come to A3 with priorities, A4 with cognition, and A5 with mindfulness. I think this gives a relatively accurate approximation of consciousness. And when we have the flexibility due to mindfulness, human beings are more able to have the act of compassion. If we do not see the situation clearly, then we are in ignorance and compassion is difficult to perform. And I do not want to hold that this, to claim that this finds all the secrets of consciousness, but at least we have described now functional consciousness, including the consciousness that's needed for meditation, namely mindfulness. And we can explain suffering and its release by this model. Thank you for your attention. And maybe there are questions.
Thank you very much, sir. If anyone having any question, please do WhatsApp on that number, which was there on the screen. I hope you're gonna message as much as possible.
Yes. Okay. The question was how progress is made from A1 to A5. I see this as the progress of evolution. So, well, we do not start with the Turing machine, of course. We start as a simple animal, maybe a one-cellular animal. But already the one-cellular animal has priorities. If it finds poison in its neighborhood, it swims away. If it finds nutrition in its neighborhood, it swims towards the nutrition. And in this way, we have developed till more cellular animals and cognition came there. And then finally in human beings, mindfulness came that can look at our states, which is pretty similar to the, by the way, to the universal Turing machine. And that makes the universal Turing machine universal by being able to see its own states. Now, of course, we do not start as Turing machines, but from the description point of view, I started with Turing machines because they are the most simple agents to describe, and then the robots came, etc. But evolution starts from A3 till A5 as human beings.
So, gentlemen, if you are having any other question, then please WhatsApp as soon as possible. We got one more question, I guess.
Yes. Can you elaborate a bit more on self-awareness and qualia for A5? Well, let me start right away. I have no answer to the qualia. So that is still a mystery. But self-awareness can be explained in A5. Let me go to the model of mindfulness. So once we have mindfulness here at the bottom of page 13, we not only see the world, but we also see our previous mind state. So here there is some self-awareness. By the way, Brouwer says this possibility gives us the intuition of time, the famous Dutch intuitionist mathematician L.A.J. Brouwer. So self-awareness comes because we can see now our own states. And some people claim this will give us also qualia. I'm not so sure. And for me, qualia are still an open problem. Thank you for this question. Yes.
That is the last question of the session. Thank you.
It did, there it is. How does a state of mind change without an input and an output? Well, let me go to the last slide. There is still input, but it is a fixed input. And it's the input of the meditation object. And there is a fixed output, namely to keep your posture of meditation. And then the physiological processes go on, and maybe after a little while, we become impatient. And then we can observe the impatience, and then we can dissolve the impatience. So still a lot is happening, but the external input is stopped and the external output is stopped. And consciousness will develop by itself then. I'm done with this question. Yes, thank you for your question.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Henk. And thank you very much, gentlemen, for putting the question right there on the main time. But now it's time to move ahead. And now would like to introduce to you all a new topic, and the topic name is...
One more, or...
Yes, we are done with that.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Nice to talk to you.
Thank you very much once again, Professor Henk. That was so nice of you. As I said before, that now we're going to move ahead for the next topic, and the next topic is in search of top-down mathematical laws. And for that, would like to introduce to you all Professor Dept Ghosh, our metallurgical and material engineer, IIT Kharagpur. Would like to give a short introduction of Professor Dept Ghosh. Received his BTech, MTech, and PhD degree in metallurgical engineering from IIT.
Stop now there.
IIT Kanpur. His research specializes in mathematical modeling of materials processes, in particular solidification and high temperature deformation processing at different length scales. His significant research contribution has been in continuous casting and casting of bulk nanocomposites. Dr. Ghosh has recently started working in the area of lithium-ion batteries and material science in ancient India. At IIT Kharagpur, he is involved with several sponsored research and development processes and projects, Since from 1995, Dr. Ghosh has been directly trained in the area of science and spirituality by Dr. T.D. Singh, a well-known authority on Vedanta and science. He has trained more than 30 faculty and scholars at the Bhaktivedanta Institute, Kolkata and IIT Kharagpur. So I apologize that Dr. Professor Sudipto Ghosh do wanna give his topic tomorrow on the early morning. Would like to request you please be with us on the morning as well. But now it's a happy time to introduce someone very special, and the next person is Dr. Debashis Khan, Department of Mechanical Engineering, IIT Varanasi. And his topic is Hoyle mathematical theory of natural selection. Would like to give a short introduction regarding Dr. Debashis Khan. Dr. Debashis Khan received his PhD degree in mechanical engineering from Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur in 2007. He is currently serving as an associate professor in the Department of Mechanical Engineering at Indian Institute of Technology, Varanasi. His research interests include analytical and computational methods in engineering, science, continuum mechanics, and plasticity, fracture machines. So let's welcome Dr. Debashis Khan. Would like to request you, please put your hands together and let's welcome sir right here onto the dais. Thank you.
So a very good evening to all of you. I think by this time all of you are exhausted and tired, because I myself is exhausted. But at this time still I am seeing around 60 to 70% delegates are here, so it is very surprising to see. So in front of this the presentation which just now you saw, that Professor Henk, this is mathematically very simple, but as at the end of the day you are exhausted, I will try to complete it very quickly. Okay. So topic is theory of evolution, mathematical and spiritual perspectives. So the most popular theories on evolution which have deeply penetrated into our academic system nowadays are the natural selection and the OA species change or the mutation of DNA. So the natural selection is also called survival of the fittest, where the heritable traits become common in a population, whereas the harmful traits become rarer in the population. And the OA species change, that is also known as random mutation of DNA, and in this mechanism genetic drift is there, and in any generation, even though this drift is very small, but in due course of time these changes accumulate and it can culminate in emergence of a new species. So that means all known species are descended from a common ancestor through this process of gradual divergence. So the theory of evolution inspired many biologists and geneticists over the years, but the origin of life is the necessary precursor, and in that it is the scientific current scientific opinion is that the life came from simple chemical reactions, but it cannot explain how. And also various models over the years have been developed in order to explain the origin of life. In that I am just mentioning Operin's model, Fox model, Crane's model, Christian Dube's model, Miller's famous model, and the double helix model for the DNA and RNA concept. the evolution theory not only inspired the biologists or geneticists, but also it inspired many developments in mathematics to model the evolution theory and to understand its many complicated puzzling things in the course of the evolution. And this Fred Hoyle, along with Vikramasinghe, published a book, Evolution from Space, where they calculated that the chance of obtaining the required set of enzymes for even the simplest living cell was 1 in 1,40,000. So that is a very least chance. So this work will describe starting from a simple feedback mechanism, considering a single parent to offspring model, that is asexual model, that the modern biological theory of evolution of new species is not capable to maintain stable population generation after generation. This will also point out that Darwinian natural selection theory is correct in a limited sense, not in large. And also this work or this presentation will mention some features of the evolution system from spiritual perspectives. So this asexual reproduction model, this I have considered because in order to keep the mathematics very simple. Okay. Though Fred Hoyle's mathematical model is also available for the bisexual model. So as this natural selection seems to follow simple feedback mechanism, so we can have a differential equation like this, dx by dt equal to sx, where this x is considered to be fraction of population consisting of favorable property capital A, whereas the remaining fraction 1 minus x possessing a different property small a, and this s is one constant. And if we integrate this simple equation with the boundary conditions, x equal to x0 at t equal to 0, you will get x equal to x0 e to the power st, where if s is greater than 0,